although some of the early American civil rights leaders, like there's some interesting debates that occur at the turn of the century between W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. And both of them had very different perspectives on what the African American community needed. I mean, Du Bois' book "Soul of Black Folks" was in large response to Booker T. Washington's speech in the Atlanta Expo in the 1890s. And so some of these early...
Check this out, guys. Which camera are we on? Check this out, guys.
Souls of Black Folks.
Once again, I'm ashamed that I haven't read this full book, but I've got it up here like I'm a smart person. Seriously, check this out. He's a PhD from Harvard. Check it out for that reason alone.
One of the great thoughts from that book is he
among many other reasons.
Oh, sure. One of the thoughts, I think the most important, is he notices that African Americans, they have this dual identity, and they have this identity as a black person, but they also have this identity as an American, and he lays out the tremendous difficulty that is for African Americans to have these two identities, and so I think a lot of his observations about that problem play out through the 20th century and certainly to now. I mean, are the Black Lives Matter, are they good Americans or not, or are they African American? So I think it's worth reading, all Americans to read,
to find a little bit of to understand some of the nuance.
Yeah, and he sees a lot of this very early, or maybe in coming out of the Reconstruction era, post-Civil War, that he sees a lot of this.
It's very, I cannot understate how important it is to be able to, we're going to have to wrap up here pretty quick, but I think it's incredibly important to understand the nuance in all of this. And I do find it, it's frustrating for me that even discussing these things, forget whether you're black, white, Latino, whatever it is, Latino for my people out there who are going to give me shit for that. No matter what you are, there is a serious, there's a sensitivity in even discussing these things where if you say certain words, people will just tune out.
Right.
They'll either stop listening. They might assume you're a racist. I have had people assume that I'm a Trump supporter because I've said certain things in a long discussion where they were just like, okay, I don't really want to hear what you have to say anymore. And that they're entitled to that, but there is a serious sensitivity in discussing these things, and I think we all need to understand that in order to address these issues, we have to discuss them. We have to talk about these issues.
Sure.
And we have to fight through, our own sensitivities, our own preconceived notions of, if you say these specific words, and not just the Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, if you say these specific words, I can paint you as a racist, or if you say these words, I can paint you as an anti-white person, because it goes on both ways. I mean, that's all I'm really trying to say is there is quite a sensitivity, and we're going to discuss this a lot more on the podcast too, throughout, our time doing this, but there is a serious sensitivity when even discussing these things.
Well, I think it's a very valid point about the sensitivity issue. I think one thing to bear in mind, I think some people's sensitivities about this comes from a position of powerlessness. When you study history, I think you notice that marginalized people, I think that's the phrase that I was looking for there, is marginalized people are keenly aware of their status within society. And so I don't know whether it's resentment, but there's certainly a sensitivity about their status. And so,
and rightfully so.
Oh, absolutely. So I think to maybe to understand some of that sensitivity. And to white Americans, it might seem to be an oversensitivity
Mm-hmm.
to certain words and language, phrases and whatnot. I think you have to bear in mind that their sensitivity may be because of a long history of being second class status, or
I think
marginalized.
that's one of the
either.
major parts of the sensitivity.
Yeah. And I think that's a hard thing. I mean, I know I struggle with that. I don't know, and maybe that's kind of my white privilege guilt coming out there, that I may not understand what it feels like to have decades and in some cases centuries of being marginalized as a group of people.
But do you think, okay, I hate to say, white people. I don't like using these generalized terms, but you almost have to in order to discuss them. Do you think it's important as a white person in America? Do you think it's helpful to understand why there's this sensitivity?
Sure.
If you read into what has happened.
Absolutely. And I think if even your first dip of your toe in the water on those kinds of readings and research, you'll discover that this marginalization is cultural, it's educational, it's economic, it's many groups have been very marginalized for a long time. It's on so many levels, and so that's a deep wound. It's a deep set of hurdles, a high set of hurdles to overcome with those marginalizations. I have a friend who's probably, in my estimation, one of the best teachers in America. He starts out as...
Do you want to give him a shout out?
Chris Kavanaugh.
Chris Kavanaugh.
Chris Kavanaugh.
Where's he? Can you tell us where he's located?
Yeah, he used to be teaching in Indianapolis, Indiana. He now is a teacher in Bismarck, North Dakota, of all places. Okay. But he said, look, American history is the history of overcoming racism and sexism.
That's very interesting.
Which acknowledges the marginalization, but it also, I think, in knowing Chris well enough to that he thinks it is possible to overcome these marginalizations. So, yeah, but I think the marginalization issue may not be, it's hard, I think, for many white Americans to understand how deep those resentments and sensitivities are due to those marginalizations.
Okay. Well, hey, I'm ecstatic to have you on.
Well,
I'm so glad we could make this happen.
This has been fun, and I like I said, it's a pleasure.
I'd love to do this again if we can. Well, I would really like to do this
that's
again.
That's up to you. You need to get some.
If it's up to me, then it'll happen again. If it's up to me, it'll happen again.
Get somebody other than the old white guy.
I'm reaching out to anyone I can.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. Well, thank you. We are signing off. This is the end of the first podcast, and take care, everybody. Read up. Don't necessarily read. Just try to educate yourselves a little bit. All right. Thank you.